creative mind or not creative mind, the question, the very first question usually is, what's your dream? I think I literally got a job because I could write my name in Helvetica Medium, which by the way ended up being semi-bold. But if we see that like that, if we see that this is a generation that has rebelled against how business is done, how creativity gets exposed, what medium you're allowed to use, then we talk about a counterculture.
Amazing.
I think it's a little earthquake, right?
Really?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Makes You Wonder. Or if this is your first viewing or listening to the show, this is a show where I, Oskar, I'm the co-founder of Wondercraft. I have conversations with people from the intersection of art and technology about the future of our human creativity in the age of artificial intelligence and technology. It's a rainy recording day here in Hoboken, but today's guest really brightened my day because his sheer joy and passion for creativity. And I think it was a beautiful conversation. Today, we are giving you episode 5 of Makes You Wonder. And this episode is with none other than Christoph Becker. He is a legend in the creative industry, and you have probably heard of him if you've been in that space for a while. He has a vast background in and experience from great creative firms like Ogilvy, Bozell, FCB New York, and Gyro, and it's operated all over the world in Europe, Latin America, and for the past 21 years here in New York, where he's been based, his family. He's a sought-after speaker. He's a juror at prestigious awards and events as Cannes, and where I actually met Christoph this year at a dinner that we shared at Wall Street Journal. Today, Christoph is the new Chief Creative Officer at Whalar Group that is making the waves in the industry with their full creator-led approach to brand building, communication. And this is a company and a group of 6 companies that really captures all the different pieces of the creator economy to really support it and harness that energy for the brands that they work with. It's fascinating as a business model. I'm really interested in how the journey that they are on to really capture this in a new way that we haven't really seen before as much in the kind of traditional agency format. We got into Christoph's early journey, how he got into the creative field, which he has a bunch of great stories. He's really easy and fun to listen to. What he's looking for when hiring. He also has a great story about how he was interviewed for his first job. And also why the creator economy is so important for media right now, as we all know, but how you can actually harness it and capture that amazing creativity and new ideas that comes out of it. And his focus on his role around entrepreneurship, tech, and creativity. We talk about why brands need to be brave enough to really let go, relinquish that control of their brand to really get the magic that creators in the creator economy can really unlock in many ways. Christoph is, again, so nice to listen to. He has so many great stories. He's a true creative. You can just see it bursting out of his seams, and his deep passion for unleashing creative voices is really, really clear. So anyway, enough about me. Let's do this. Welcome to Makes You Wonder and this is my conversation with Christoph Becker.
How long have you been in New York? You've been here for quite some time.
I've been in New York now 23 years.
23 years. That is amazing. And I do remember one story that you told me during that dinner was something that stuck with me. That was actually how you described your day during 9/11 and how that day unfolded for you. I don't know why the story that you told me just stuck with me. Would you mind sharing that again? What that day was like?
Sure. The day was a very long day, but basically it started with just having breakfast, and I was living next to the Empire State. So I was roughly, I think it was in the 38th floor or something like that. And, used to planes that were flying the city, but that was vividly low. So low that actually the balcony door opened. And, my only thought is someone has to do something to not let the planes to fly so low. It just makes no sense. The interesting thing is what really, from all of us that are in the audio industry and creative industry, what was very weird is something that was weird in my mind. It was that the sound of the plane was a landing sound. It was not an overflying sound. So that kind of couldn't get out of my system. It was very weird. I thought, this is strange why you have that sound. And then when I was in the street, Park Avenue, my office was on 42nd Street, I had this very iconic, almost Americana disaster movies where everyone gets out of the car and points out to the sky. That scene that everyone has seen in any movie from Spielberg to you name it. And that made me look back. This is what was happening because I was walking uptown and it was happening downtown. And I saw one of the towers with big black smoke. And a doorman said to me, looks like a 747 crashed in one of the towers. And I was walking and said, this is very unusual to really think about that as an accident. That kind of crossed my mind. When I went to the office, in that office we had roughly 800 people in the office. Everyone was in my office, had a TV set, and everyone was watching the images. When I got there, the second tower had flames and smoke. Very shocking image. And this is for the background that I come from. I grew up in Spain, and at that time was a lot of terrorist attacks in the city. And I don't know, my first reaction was to call HR and said, send everyone home. This is a terrorist attack. So, everyone went home and went home safely. I think that's the only thing. I went down, took $2,000 out of the ATM and bought 2 gallons of water and went home. That's it.
Yeah, it's good time to start preparing. But what a strange time. And that must have been right when you moved to the city then, right?
Yeah. Very, very recent. It was very recent in the city. Yeah.
Must have been a very, very special time.
Yeah, I think it's a before and after time for the city, for the country, for the world, and, whatever came after that. Yeah,
so let's talk a little bit about before you came to the US and what you're doing now. You're the new Chief Creative Officer at Whalar Group, which is super exciting. We can get into all of that. But I want to start because you have such a vast and rich experience from the creative industry that I want to unpack a little bit. And this show is all about creativity, human creativity, and how that converges with technology. So we're going to get into a few different things I want to pick your brain on, obviously. But you started out pursuing a career as an industrial engineer, as I understand it. Or you started studying that at least. Was there a specific moment that led to you switching to more of the creative path?
Yeah, I think that is what I'm not sure I shared with you that. But first of all, there was a very failure-driven first intention to become an engineer in my life. And that was simply out of, I would say, my father's influence as an engineer, and said, you need to be an engineer. Of course, I had no idea what to do and happened to be there. So I said, okay, let's go and start studying that. But rapidly, I realized it has nothing to do with me, which is luckily. And one thing I remember is perfectly, probably a bit detailed, but I remember the first classes, there were this professor giving us this great presentation about the principles of engineering and the first basics and the all the big picture. Already by then, I realized this. I don't understand what this gentleman is talking about. And probably one thing that was clear to me is that nothing would interest me what this gentleman was talking about. So every time a class finished, people would clean up this huge blackboard, you know. There was a big atrium, and so they were cleaning this big blackboard. And every time they finished cleaning it, you know, when you clean a blackboard, you leave traces of chalk. And the interesting thing, what it does, is that it creates kind of a 3D effect. Because it's done on black, and not all traces have the same intensity, so they create all depth. So without smoking or drinking anything in that moment, I think I built all kinds of stories and movies and animations and horses running on clouds and waves crashing into deserts and you name it. So that I scribbled on my paper. And I remember my colleague was in the class with me. He said, "You definitely need to get out of here." Which I did. But yeah, this is when you're a creative mind and you are in a panic mode, not knowing where to apply your creativity. It's a very concerning thought for a young person, because when the world is not prepared to give potential opportunities to creative minds because they haven't been identified, or simply someone even talks to you about that possibility, you are lost. And you have to do your own exercise to find the path, which is a very torture test to if you continue being a creative professional or not, which probably 80% of the times the answer is no. So I'm not even talking about artists. It's a completely different story. I'm talking about creative application overall. And that could go from musical to drawing, painting, designing, whatever you might. So luckily, the world is full of museums, and I stumbled into the Bauhausschule in Ulm. And yeah, it's a long story, but I think it's basically has related to the creativity, how a creative mind evolves over time. But I had this pedantic thought that what I was seeing there, I could do.
Yeah, so it seems like, I mean, I don't know if you would describe it this way, but one way to look at advertising is kind of call it a beautiful convergence of art and maybe commercialism in a way, right? It's blended. And you started as an art director. And what was your first job? Was that GGK in Zurich?
GGK, correct. It's a Swiss agency. They just opened in Madrid. And luckily, there were a Bauhaus-born agency, one of the few, if not the only one. I think one of the G's, Gerstner, was a founder of the Bauhaus. Oh. And they were obsessed with people that really were radical in the typeface application, which was something by personal obsession I liked. And and the interview that I had, I came prepared with all my design and my dark thoughts.
Your dark thoughts in a portfolio.
In my little dark room in some bleach building where we lived, and show them all these exuberant and great ideas that I thought were all over the place and good. But that gentleman just took out his Mont Blanc, gave it to me, and said, "Write your name in Helvetica medium."
How Swiss! What a Swiss challenge! I guess.
I know, and he was Swiss too. He was Swiss too. And he gave me his pen, and then I said, "How much time do I have?" And he said, "I have all day." So,
wow!
So I think I literally got a job because I could write my name in Helvetica medium, which, by the way, ended up being semi-bold, but.
Semi-bold. You're out of here. This is way too bold.
Okay, it's fine. So he hired me.
Wrong weight. Yeah.
But the fact that someone hires you because you have an obsession of some artistic or design expression already told me that I was in the right place. And even we can talk down the advertising industry as much as we want. It is the magnet to anyone who has a multi curiosity of everything that moves in the creative universe, especially when you are in the creative space. But even that boss, he was a creative director, which was very unusual in that time, because usually people were not creative directors unless they were founders like Ogilvy, DDB, Birnbach, and so forth. But then it evolved to be more banks.
Interesting. Okay. Let's unbundle that a little bit. So, first of all, that is an interview technique that certainly left a mark, but very cool one. Is that something that you've carried with you when you now are a creative leader and have been for many, many years? What's your interview technique like? How do you test creatives when they come through the door?
No, because as you know, someone gets to a little box and types in the name and gets all the typefaces they want. So it's completely obsolete, that technique. That only can prove that you love some craftsmanship, which I still do. I still appreciate people they do that, because I think, not going deep into typefaces, that each letter is a language by itself. So I think there's a lot of studies about that. Anyway, now my interviews, fast forward, being a creative director, building agencies in Latin America or here in the US, or my own later on, creative mind or not creative mind, the question, the very first question usually is, what's your dream? I want to know what drives that person. All the rest I can build around, and I can find out, by the way. Because you give me 3 names, I know who you are. If you're an asshole, well done. We stop talking. But I mean, if it happened to be validated by a lot of people and I happen to connect with the drive that person has, there's big chances that I can see in that person, who's hopefully much better than me, to do something that I don't want to do anymore, So people just go and do it, and I can free them up and make them shine as much as I can. So I'm a big believer that people come in one way and should come out in a much larger way. So yeah, what's your dream? That's basically has been always my favorite question.
It's about finding the passion and what drives that person, and then the tools can come later, kind of thing.
Passion is one thing, but also there's some, I remember how annoying it felt to me. Then I was creating my own company, Gyro, and or helping to build it. And most of the people, when I asked them, what is your dream? They said, have my own business. And I said, what the fuck? So, why in the world would you come to Gyro? But then I realized that people saying that actually were the best ones, because those were builders.
Right.
The one thing that we have forgotten in this industry, in my opinion, is that we get so caught up with our own craftsmanship and our own agendas with what we want to do that we lose the entrepreneurial sensitivity of the challenge of the business and the brand. And by doing that, you never will come up with something completely new. You will emulate other solutions. But what is really different in every single time is the entrepreneurial challenge, the business challenge that you have to solve. So I appreciate that. Many people actually build a company. Sometimes I said, okay, you tell me what the company is. I remember one person, which is still, I don't know if it still exists. She was about to run our Denver office, and she said that her dream was to have a microbrewery. Guess what? She left and did, and we ended up.
Good for her.
And I think the only thing I missed the boat is we didn't invest in it. But I mean, that is what we're doing now. This is something now. Jumping to a Whalar is where I really feel very comfortable, because we can co-create businesses with creators, which is a beautiful, beautiful place to be.
Right. So first of all, I want to I can't get over the Helvetica exercise you did. Actually reminds me, my brother was in film school. This is a couple of years ago now, but still, his first task getting into film school was to edit a movie with just a black and white frame, which I thought was it always stuck with me as an interesting exercise to film school. Anyway, different story. Let's talk about Whalar Group, because you're already kind of treading into that. After a long career, you've had amazing positions at very well-renowned agencies, created your own agencies, and now, quite recently, you joined Whalar Group as the Chief Creative Officer, as I have understood it. And there's lots of fantastic articles about that out there for people who want to read about it. So, tell me, Whalar is a full-service creator agency built for the creator economy. What is really the core insight behind launching an agency model in that way? And what is that creator-first kind of modus operandi that you work by?
Well, first of all, I think you're jumping into the agency business of Whalar Group. So the first, I think, if you don't mind, we should start with the Whalar Group, which is the ecosystem.
Right. Forgive me. Let's start there.
My position as the Chief Creative Officer of the Whalar Group is to make sure that ecosystem could bring to life that value that you just expressed, which is probably one of the most important parts of our ecosystem, which is our Whalar agency, which is end-to-end global creator-led agency. We can go there in a moment as an agency model or business. But Whalar Group by itself was inspired by so many times happens with when there's entrepreneurs that have the bravery and the vision to see that the media, marketing, and advertising industry was going to an obsolete space. And came up with the idea to create an ecosystem around creators. So everything that the ecosystem would represent would be created for, with inspiration from creators. Being creators, the new generation with the future shaping voices that actually will define the industry overall. So that was the birth 8 years ago by Neil and James, who founded Whalar. And I think the beauty of this is the ecosystem is designed to empower creators to reach, we could say, limitless possibilities. It's actually, ecosystem is exactly that. It's expanding by the time, while the creator economy and a creator is expanding itself. So in a way, it's a very brave move because you basically are pre-designing the ecosystem to an economy that's expanding as we speak. So that goes to give creators access to the top brands in the world and platforms, which is the Whalar agency, which is end-to-end full-service agency. It gives access to 360 management of creators, which is Whalar Talent. Gives access to AI, data, and analytics with an operative tool that we have named Foam. And then what we just spoke about, giving capital and business skills to creators to launch their own products and their own services. We name it Mobi. And one thing that is extremely exciting, which is hand in hand with the Bauhaus thought, which is the Lighthouse. And the Lighthouse is the first campus, in real life campus for creators on this beautiful planet. We'll have it in Brooklyn, Venice, LA, and London soon. Brooklyn and Venice being very soon opened. And then finally, well, we have even the future of the gaming, which goes hand in hand with creators, with Yumi. So why I'm saying that is because you will not understand the Whalar agency without understanding the whole ecosystem, because everything is being built to be overlapping and working in sync. in order to elevate the value we can give to brands and to platforms too, by the way.
Can you talk us through an example of someone that you work with? Just give us an understanding of how the creative process really works for some of the brands that you work with.
After this call, I can send you a couple of case studies and films so you can put it up.
Oh, yeah. We can link that in the show notes.
We can link it and people can see and explain how, because the beauty about the creator economy, it is extremely diverse.
Right.
As diverse as any vertical.
Yeah.
And you can have a platform solution, or you can have a brand solution, or you can simply have a creator product, as we just had recently with a matcha tea launch. But I mean, I can explain what is our real differentiator here when it comes to creative evolution and output. I think the beauty of it, first and foremost, is we understand creators better than anyone else. And that is something very important to be said, because there will be a lot of organizations talking about that there are creator companies here and there that do this great in media, great in strategy, great in PR. Yes, the capabilities might be world-class. What is not world-class is the connectivity and interaction with creators, which is absolutely key in this case. Because one thing we should understand is that creators basically are inspired and leading value-driven communities. And value-driven communities you cannot approach with performance marketing.
Correct. That makes sense.
You can name them targets if you want to. I don't think they're going to like it, but there's definitely value-driven. Value-driven requires a much deeper, sensitive, and relevant engagement approach. So when we talk about creativity, it's a creativity that needs to embrace those values. So on one hand, we understand the client agenda very well. I'm talking about right now the Whalar agency. We know exactly what the platform requires. We understand the strategy because we understand that language. On the other hand, we know the creator, and we know what the creator could eventually create, produce, and impact, and combine that in a co-creative environment. By doing that, myself coming from a traditional advertising background, more traditional by the minute, more obsolete by a minute. Maybe I'm obsolete actually right now that I'm thinking about it. But I'm basically speechless, because the output is so surprising, so amazingly refreshing, and more importantly, something you believe.
It's authentic, right? That's really what we're trying for.
It's something you really want to be part of, which is everyone knows what this is about, but everyone wants to be part of. And that magnetism is something I haven't felt for a long time in this industry. And I think that is a huge differentiator for where the world is going. And if everyone says, oh, yeah, Gen Z's seminars here, Gen Z's seminars over there, the truth is these are communities that are not accessible. Mm-hmm. And the only way to access them is through creators. So if that's the way to talk, if that's the way to liberate, that's why you probably have seen our mission is the liberation of the creative voice, which we are big, deep believer that by doing this, we liberate them from these kind of structures that we have built in marketing that basically were based on customer journeys. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to tell a customer journey to a community, it will definitely not work. So, but if we go even more pragmatic, I can tell you, and that is also something our measurement department that we have, our analytics, tell that 2.5 return of investment of effectiveness of a creator experience to any other marketing effort. So are you going to drive that through the ground by saying that is what we do? No. But if you're a marketeer and you have a brand and you have tried everything and you probably are competing in in a very busy category, you should think twice how you address your next campaign, action, and engagement project. Because, one thing that this is another beautiful thing here, is that the reason you'd ask me this, but the reason I'm in this side of the creative order is because I see how a capability is becoming a transformative marketing arm. People bought it like a category before, or capability, put some money here for a tactical video coming from this influencer and so forth, to a strategy which is creator-led with creator outcome, because we have to understand creators right now are businesses. They have employees, they have production companies, they have their own scripts, so we're talking about mini platforms that are way beyond the imagination of many people today, which is, I've seen it in LA, I've been to many studios, and I've seen how that is becoming. That's why actually Lighthouse has been created, because they need a place to create, build, and connect. So, So that's the interaction with clients is a much more collaborative, co-creative approach. I think I spent all my life presenting too.
Right.
All my life.
Right.
All my life.
The traditional way. Yeah.
My entire life is based on ta-da, I hate it. Ta-da, oh, this is great. Oh my God. You won the account. Fine. But that was my life. Now, that cannot happen because no one has the full solution. So the solution can only come when you are nurtured with the right actors in the right place. So that's why this is so fascinating, because all our beautiful ego that we have nurtured for so many years gets out of the door, So it's like you say, hey, I won 20 lions, and they look at you and say, good for you. Yeah, good.
I guess there's a brands, they need to relinquish control to some degree to make great communication happen in the creator economy. I mean, I've been in podcasting for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens there.
Same thing.
Great host reads and endorsements that come through from hosts are the ones that they really get the creative freedom to take a brand or take pieces of it even and turn it into something new. But many times I've seen throughout my career that brands it's very hard to lose that control, to get the greatness out of something. And it could even backfire and be just really bland and worse if they control it too much. It's like you have to let the genie out of the bottle in a way to make that happen. But it's very hard, I can imagine. But is there anything that you do to, I guess, help that along the way as a group? Because you sit in the middle of brands and creators and making kind of that as a catalyst for that to happen. So what is the secret that you do?
The secret sauce, or the secret weapon of Whalar Group itself, is that the proximity and the trust that we have with the creators will give you an access and understanding of the creators that no one else can give you. So by having visibility, understanding, and knowing that there's trust, you really have a very robust way to present yourself. That's number one. Number two, we have clients that have been with us many years, and their maturity and embedment and collaborative nature of working with us makes it a very logical and robust arm of any marketing communication ambitions that they have. So I think as anything in life, we don't have to go that far. Remember when digital happened, we had creative digital departments. Can you believe that? But yeah, I can, because I hired the people like that. But I mean, and then someone said, oh, don't worry, we have the traditional Super Bowl people and we have the digital people, the boring guys, but they know this shit. And then said, oh, hold a second, it's not everything digital. Said, oh, yeah, forget what I said. We're all digital now, and all creatives are digital. So I think It's a question of the format and where the technology is taking us. And we have to embrace it, and we have to evolve the creativity and how we apply creativity and how we can get the excellence of the creativity, not losing it, while embracing this new technologies, new ways of doing it. Here, what you have is creators. They are literally independent creative entrepreneurs. Their ambition is really to give their communities what they consider is real, authentic, and true through a lens of a brand, of course, or an event, or whatever you want to bring to them. So I think the closer you are to this co-creation, the more you believe in it. And I think that's a question of maturity. I think the same thing that I said before, people still see it like a capability and don't see it like a transformative, full service, end-to-end marketing arm. That is a question of time.
You said in a quote that we found that Whalar Group is a company that is building a culture that celebrates the future of creativity. What is the future of creativity? Say, looking ahead, and where are we going? Can you extrapolate where we've come from with the rise of this creator economy? And
well, if I had the answer, I definitely would not sitting here talking to you. But,
all right.
But I can tell you where my experience and my gut and all my great clients and great CMO connection has taught me. And as I think there is a clear indication that creativity, when it comes to quality, I will not go to any other consideration that we know exactly how to measure good creativity, good idea from a not so good one, right? But when it comes to the output, how we express it, how we expand it, how we make it more sustainable, how we make it more relevant, then the future kicks in. So I think that is what I consider the future of creativity, because as soon as you invite a, so to speak, outsider of the advertising industry that is a creator, you already put a new element in the equation. So the output can only be one, which is completely different. So that's why I name it the future. I'm not questioning the quality of creativity in this case. This is not what I'm talking about. That is, for me, is not even something, unfortunately, we creative directors don't consider that not even something, a goal. That is simply a must, an obligation to come to work every day. But I mean, how that future looks like, how that gets handed over and embraces the brands and make the brands really a citizen of these communities and a driver of, why not, social good. And that is a question that, of course, PR can do it its way, but definitely the vehicle of the creator will give you access and connectivity that otherwise, so to speak, the known creative output would not give you. I think the world is too complex, There's too many options. So you need a voice that people can believe, trust, love, and live with every day when they put the content out there, that you would open your phone and check it out, We know we haven't even gotten to how people consume media. So, because at the end, when we talk about future creativity, for me, it's always how consumers consume the media or the content. So if we don't take that in consideration, I spent my first 5 years in the creative industry in the weekends producing trailers for my brave filmmakers, friends. And then when you know what a trailer is, which is a visual telegraphic way to tell a 3-hour story, that's the world we're living in today. So I think we're living in a trailer telegraphic visual world, or audio podcast world. But I mean, everything is the way we tell the story. You know, I think at the end, a brand is a story, and the storytelling vehicle of a creator cannot be better. You know, there's all kinds of ways of doing it, and especially if you multiply the potential of a creator, like in a lighthouse, where we have the productions, where we have that beautiful microphone that you have. We have a couple of those, and we have a kitchen, and we have cameras, and we have business consultancy. You can imagine that creativity is way beyond what we consider today. I say future simply because it's completely different from what I've seen in my life. What is not different is the quality. There's good work and bad work.
That's amazing. Yeah, I can only imagine the Lighthouse being such a creative playground with lots of new, interesting technologies in the future, with holograms and VR and AR and new form factors like spatial computing, adding to different types of storytelling. But are there any, what on a personal level? I know we talked about that during dinner, that you're a big fan of the audio format. What other kind of darling media do you consume yourself, Christoph? Where are you?
Well, I consume a lot of Roblox because I have a 10-year-old.
So do I. Lots of Roblox, lots of Fortnite.
I never even thought, and that taught me a lot. Our Yumi games, are way ahead on that already. But I think there's a difference between I'm obligated to consume or exposed through a 10-year-old, which I happily do and enjoy, to what I do myself. I will probably give you a very boring answer, and which is I consume more instance moments and experiences these days, glimpses of pure insights that happen around me than on the screen. I try to collect those moments more. There's a movie from Wim Wenders from Perfect Days. You probably can see when he sits in the park. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but you should check it out.
I know the movie.
Yeah. When the sun comes to the trees and this little moment where the sun actually goes to the little gap between the leaves, that is a moment of his inspiration. I'm not going so poetic to it, but what I am telling you is that I leave the home and my phone at home and get lost to the city. I'm lucky to live in New York City where I'm traveling and just walk around without any plan. And if any creative mind, you pick up things that otherwise are impossible. If you want to be relevant, you have to find the relevancy, I think you cannot surround you with baked stuff, You can learn from it, but you cannot get inspired. You get inspired by raw stuff, but stuff that's not cooked, I remember way back when I had a team of creative directors and art directors, and they were all going through these literature archives and books with all this unbelievable work that I wish I could do. And I realized that I stopped doing it because that is when the idea is dead already. It's finished. It's the end point. I wish I could talk to those creative directors before they came up with this idea, which probably is sitting in a park somewhere and talking some random bullshit and landed on something very unique. And then the idea became big. So I think that is where you learn. I think creative minds need to learn what the raw material is. Museums could help because in some extent it's kind of detached from what we do. But I mean, real life, what can I say? We're going to be very lucky if we experience more real life the more often we can. So honestly, I know it's a boring answer, but I can tell you the movies I've seen or the books I'm reading.
I think
It's that is just a moment in life,
I think it's quite beautiful, though. It's, especially when you're in such a creative field, and atop of in the creative world, really, where you are, to turn to real life for inspiration to find.
I think that the word is open. The word is open. I think this is a time in the zeitgeist. I can say that, being originally German, I can use that word without sounding too pedantic. But the zeitgeist is really the timing we're living in. And I think we need to understand the times, and we have to understand such a variety of human experiences and human outputs, that if you're not open, it will be very difficult for you to survive the next 5 years, 10 years in this business. So I think Victoria, who runs our talent business, she said she was a rep for punk bands most of her life, and now she represents the creators, 360 or something that we have. And she said something to me. She said, at the end of the day, I come representing a counterculture, and now I'm doing it again. So if we see it like that, if we see that this is a generation that has rebelled against how business is done, how creativity gets exposed, what medium you're allowed to use, then we're talking about a counterculture. We're talking about a culture that's free to evolve and lead the progress of everything we do. And that's where the liberation of creative voice was born, because at the end, if you ask me, I think owning liberation by itself is a beautiful space to be. And sitting in that industrial engineering class, I definitely was not liberated. And if anyone would have shown me any option, I would have felt so refreshed. So when I see and talk to creators and we tell them all the toys that we put around them, I think by myself, coming out of my little dark spot and saying, shit, no one did that for me.
Be grateful, kids.
Come on.
But I love that. Victoria, your coworker said that. Basically, the creator economy, creators, that's a punk movement in a way.
It's disrupting everything you know.
Right.
From entrepreneurship, from application of creativity, and how the usage of technology. All three pillars are thrown in a completely different space. And the reason is because it's not controllable. Mm. So, in a way, that is a big way of saying that now, my daughter has a Sex Pistols t-shirt, which is a what? Anyway, but you can see how what I mentioned to you the other day is that how that counterculture, which is that corner of the beach in Cannes Festival, is eventually becoming the beach in the future, the mainstream, where we're all going to have Ramones t-shirts, we're all going to have buying Gap, the Nirvana little face. So I think, no, this is a bit depressing what I'm saying right now, but anyway, I don't know why I slipped into that. But what I'm saying is there is always someone who breaks through. And this case are the creators, the ones that break through. And they are leading the way, they're pioneering the way. And the sooner we embrace them and build a dialogue and relationship with this clearly leaders of communities, the better, And I think that's probably the most exciting part of all of it, honestly. There's a little kind of anything could happen moment there, and I think that's very refreshing to me.
Christoph, we're coming up on time here. I can sit here for hours and just listen to you. You are a fantastic storyteller, and there should be more audio with you. I'm happy I'm contributing to letting your voice out.
I wish we had more people like you that brings that megaphone to what today feels a capability, and now the stature will just grow over time,
Oh, thank you. We're trying. I think there's this interesting times. I've had so much curiosity about how everything is evolving and how people are. Like you said, the world is open and there's so much going on in terms of how creativity comes out now so seamlessly and everywhere, for good and sometimes for bad, but certainly for it's an evolution that is just interesting to pontificate and discuss, and especially what we're going through now with technology and artificial intelligence, and not only how we experience it, but how media and voices are actually telling us about it, forming our opinions around it. I find that people are quite, there's a lot of fear and stuff in the world. There's a lot of, but there's a lot of optimism around it as well. And I just find it all very fascinating to hear how people respond to it and approach it.
This is going back to the counterculture. Most of us live in a bubble that we're exposed to. And the same thing that you get lost in Bushwick and tumble in the little bar and you hear sounds of a band that you never even thought in your life, is simply because it didn't have the chance to be on a mainstream big stage, It doesn't mean that what is happening there is huge, because you actually mentioned that it is not only that we're talking about these big creators that are followed by millions and millions of communities. We're talking about niche communities that basically could transform much more than what we think. And the impact that they have is enormous. So I'm an optimist. If not, I would still be an engineer today. And a bad one. With a nice house.
There is a little engineer inside of you, Christoph. I sense it.
With an Audi in the garage, and anyway, I think. But at the end of the day, I think if we don't try to force ourselves to really embrace these new voices, I think we're making really no favor, I would say, even to the younger generations at all. I think it's a celebration of the human imagination, and we talk a lot about AI and technology, but this is the real flag of the human imagination, how far you can get. And that, in my opinion, is the beauty of it.
Amazing.
I think it's a little earthquake, right?
Really?
Yeah, at least in this building.
No way. I didn't feel anything here.
Okay, it's gone now. It was fun.
Well, what a little dramatic effect here at the end of our recording.
Maybe it's just the way you send that. Anyway, but
yeah,
definitely the building vibrate. Anyway,
it's a creator economy waking up in anticipation of this episode dropping, Christoph. That's what it is.
It's the power.
Well, I'm going to leave you to it. I'm sure you're a very busy man. It's been so lovely. I have a couple of ending questions. But first of all, where do we were on that. Give us one recommendation. I know you dropped some. I'm actually reading the book that you recommended me in Cannes. Meet me in the bathroom. Meet me in the bathroom. Yeah, it's awesome. I just started it.
It's good, right?
Yeah.
Even the format is new. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's awesome. Give us some other recommendation. I know you're into music. Any new bands you've discovered, or podcasts that you recommend, or a book that you're currently reading? Give us something here.
Let me show you. I think.
All right.
There's I actually have it here under the computer. If not, I would be too low.
Oh, it's a computer stand. That's a good book then.
And I think.
Is it a typography book? Because those are my favorites. No. I'm also a bit of a typography nerd for some reason. It always gives me great joy.
This just goes back to, of course, I can recommend you all kinds of trade books that I'm reading right now, but I will not recommend that. I actually would recommend,
Okay.
I recommend it because everyone knows what books these are. Everyone knows them. But I mean,
Yeah.
this is going back to where you said you find your inspiration. This is the aphorisms of Franz Kafka. You know,
Oh.
the interesting thing is a very visual world that this gentleman brings to life, and the play around how the connectivity of the words create a meaning that has multiple meanings. I think it's a very interesting way to learn how content can interconnect, even if the elements are completely absurd or Kafkaesque. So that I think is very refreshing. I do it, and you don't have to read the whole book. You just open the page wherever you can, and we never have time for anything. Movie, I just said it, Perfect Days. I think I would recommend that one. Music, this you can say, oh my God, really? But anyway, I tell you something. I tell you, then it's a band from LA named
Deceit. All right. Okay.
If you listen to it, you actually think you're listening to a very famous band named Cure.
All right. Yeah.
But it has the ingredients of today's times. So anyway, that's going to listen. Concert awesome. I went a couple months ago to Jungle here in New York. And besides the music...
Django?
What's that?
In the Django?
Jungle, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Love that place.
Yeah, the agency, that was the band Jungle. And I think of course, the music didn't surprise me because, of course, that's why I went there to listen to them. But I mean, the stage was Kraftwerk stage.
Oh, really? All right. Sorry, I confused this with Django. I thought you meant Django, which is the jazz club.
No.
In Tribeca. No, okay.
Jungle, the band.
I see. Oh, I see.
Which is, as you know, very, very funk, very dance music. But then they have all these graphics where Kraftwerk completely minimal, which if everyone wants to see that band, which I think is touring, it's interesting.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So, Christoph, one last thing before we round out. If you could give any advice, I mean, you had such an amazing career and are in such an amazing career. What advice would you give to the generation now who are getting into the creative career path you've been on? What advice would you give them?
My advice has more to do with my trajectory, which is be the best in your craft. When I say the best, one of the best in the world or industry, and then expand completely your knowledge and embrace everything that moves. Mm-hmm. So your craft shouldn't dictate where you're going, but will give you the foundation to feel secure enough that you can jump into the chaos and open space that the creativity can offer today. So people usually doing the opposite these days. They feel that they know the expansive universe of all the touch points and have a very weak craftsmanship. So I will tell you that has not much future. So that's my advice.
Solid advice. Thanks so much for sharing that with everyone. All right. So where can people find out more about you, about Whalar? Where can we direct people?
WhalarGroup.com. It's very easy. Go in there.
Is it Lighthouse open?
Our Lighthouse, Brooklyn is probably beginning of next year, and Venice end of this year.
Amazing.
So London in the next year.
Can't wait.
That's where that's going to happen. You will definitely see it. You're invited to come over. It's here in Greenpoint, and you will. I have no doubt you will love it. So I think people, you actually, it's in a way done for you.
Yeah, I mean, I am pumped. I was very excited when you talked about that when I met you a couple of months ago.
And about me, Christoph.Becker@Whalar.com. Whenever you want, I'm here for you guys.
Look at that openness. Christoph, you're such a sport and a legendary in the industry, and I'm so happy to get to know you. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you, and I'm hoping you can run it back in a couple of months and see more about the future holds for the creator economy, what you're doing over there, breaking new grounds in creativity. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity and for the patience for listening to all this stuff that I have to tell you.
I love it. Now we're going to have AI Anna read us out. That's going to come after this. But thanks everyone for tuning in to Makes You Wonder. And round of applause for our guests.
Christoph. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching and listening to Makes You Wonder. If you enjoyed this episode, do us a solid and hit that subscribe button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. For extra karma, please share with your mom and your friends too. Makes You Wonder is made with love by Wondercraft, the AI audio studio for brands and creative teams. It's hosted by Oskar Sarander. You can find Oskar on LinkedIn, X, and Threads. Links in show notes. This episode was produced by Alex Hughes Morgan. It was edited by Zaina. A nice young man named Dimitri from Wondercraft was the executive producer. Learn more about Wondercraft at wondercraft.ai.